She wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway. Christmas morning. She stood outside the house most people assumed belonged to Matt and Kelly. Lights were on. The wreath was in place. Everything looked stable except the relationships behind the door. She held a tin of homemade cookies in one hand, a small gift for her grandson Dylan in the other. The same white sweater she wore last year, the one Dylan once said made her look like a snowflake. The door opened. Kelly appeared in a robe expression unreadable. No smile, no greeting, just stillness. Like this moment had been rehearsed in her head. A child's voice came from inside, asking a question no one answered. Kelly shifted her body just enough to block the view. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The message was clear. The woman didn't offer the cookies, didn't hold out the gift, didn't ask why. She just said one thing: calm, even, final good luck with the mortgage. Then she turned and walked away. No slamming door, no drama, just cold air and quiet steps back to the car. She placed the gift in the passenger seat and sat still for a moment. The house stood across the street, same roof, same lights, but no space left for her. She didn't come to cause a scene, she came to see the truth. And now that she had silence was no longer her strategy, because this time she had something stronger than memories. She had paperwork. She didn't drive straight home. Instead, she moved slowly through quiet streets, letting the silence soak into her like cold air through a cracked window. On the seat beside her sat the untouched cookies, the still-wrapped gift. It was Christmas night, but there was nothing left to unwrap. 5 years ago, she had signed the mortgage papers without hesitation. Matt, her only son, needed a stable home. Kelly was pregnant. The bank had rejected their application for lack of income. They called her. She came. She signed. No questions asked. Matt said he'd never forget what she did. Kelly offered a tight-lipped smile. The house was bought, the door closed, and she slowly faded from the picture. The texts came less often. Dinner invitations stopped altogether. Holidays passed like background noise. Last year she brought Dylan a birthday cake. No one opened the door. She left it on the front step. The next morning it was still there, the lid warped by snow. No note, no reply. Tonight felt the same. Her small rental apartment glowed quietly. On the kitchen counter sat the unopened gift. Next to it, a photo of Dylan, frosting on his cheeks, arms wrapped around her legs, grinning like nothing in the world could break them apart. She poured herself a small glass of wine, then opened the drawer. The mortgage folder was still there, neat, complete. Each page flipped like an echo of trust that once felt permanent. Then she saw it. A refinance form dated on her birthday. Her name was printed, but the signature, it wasn't hers. The strokes were shaky, the alignment was off. The letters bent wrong. She hadn't signed it, she knew that. The next morning she brought the documents to Joan, an old friend, former bank officer, and the person who'd notarized almost every major signature of her life. Joan laid the pages side by side, compared each line. She didn't have to say anything. The truth was in the slant of the E, the forced loop of the surname, the stamp printed on a Sunday. A bad imitation, a sloppy forgery. Joan gave a single nod. For her, it was confirmation. For the woman sitting across from her, it was permission to begin. That afternoon, she gathered everything: old texts, vague emails, bits of conversation Kelly had written down. Matt will handle the paperwork. No need to show up at the bank. Clues scattered and quiet, but together they drew a map of deception. On a yellow notepad, she wrote at the top, "Things I overlooked." First line, trusting the wrong person. The next day, she sat in a legal aid office. The attorney was young, focused, and didn't waste time. She flipped through the documents, marking inconsistencies. No need for dramatic language. Her face said enough this was fraud. From that moment on, the woman didn't hesitate. She wasn't asking for the house back. She was reclaiming her right to the truth. That evening, she parked across from the house once held up as the family's pride. Matt stepped outside. He looked tired, avoided eye contact. She said nothing, just handed him the folder already open to the page he needed to see. He read. His hands shook slightly. Then he sat still. No words were needed. The evidence was loud enough. She wasn't hoping for an apology anymore. She wanted a line drawn, and this time it would hold. There was no Christmas tree that year, but for the first time in a long time she'd found her light again. 3 days after leaving the lawyer's office, an envelope slipped quietly through the gap beneath her door. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of her ID and a single typed line uneven on the page. Be careful what you're digging into. She didn't flinch, just reached for a binder clip, attached it to the folder, and scribbled in red ink evidence. Indirect threat. She didn't call Matt, didn't text Kelly. She waited. 4 days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. A quiet woman's voice on the other end, uncertain but kind. I'm Lisa from Dylan's daycare. I found something in his cubby. Thought you might want to see it. 15 minutes later, she pulled into the lot. Lisa came out through the side entrance as if handing over classified documents. The paper was folded in quarters, a crayon drawing, a house, 3 stick figures out front, tall, medium, small. Behind a window, a 4th figure, drawn in thick, heavy blue, a sad face. Below it, in blocky, uneven handwriting, Grandma is outside. She didn't cry, just ran her fingers along the waxy lines. The picture didn't speak, but it said everything. Back home, she taped it to the refrigerator, then opened her phone and sent Matt a photo of it. No caption, no explanation, just silence. 10 minutes later, he called back. His voice was low, rough. He said he misses you, and Kelly, he stopped there. She didn't need the rest. She already knew. The next morning, Matt arrived unannounced. No Kelly, just a worn canvas bag in one hand and a different look in his eyes. In the other hand, a large envelope. Inside was everything: bank statements, payment logs, transfers to a PayPal account under Kelly's sister's name in another state. Handwritten notes claiming it was all for kitchen repairs, yet no receipts, no permits, no purchases tied to that address. Online orders, spa invoices, furniture never delivered. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. The truth was laid out line by line. He placed the folder on the table, then stepped out to the balcony. The wind had picked up. Dry leaves swirled across the floor like something being swept clean. Finally, he said, "If this costs me Dylan, then maybe I deserve that." I let him grow up in a lie. She watched him, and for a moment saw the boy he used to be, not the man who failed, the child who once learned how to walk, how to say sorry. But now he didn't need words, only follow-through. 2 days later, the documents were filed with the court. No hearing was needed. A financial audit was approved immediately. The house was frozen. Every dollar spent since the fraudulent refinance now had to be accounted for. Matt called to say Kelly had left, moved back to her mother's. No confrontation, no explanations, just one voicemail she'd left behind. You have no idea what you've started. But she did. She hadn't destroyed a family. She'd stripped the paint off a wall that had been rotting for years. And now, alone in her quiet apartment, she felt lighter than she had in a long, long time. The house, they could sell it. They could split it. But trust, if not reclaimed now, it might never return. A month later, the house was officially listed. The court ordered the assets to be split based on legal ownership. Matt received 20%. She got back her original 50%, the portion she'd signed for all those years ago. The rest went to penalties, debts, and the damage Kelly left behind. Kelly didn't appear in court. Her lawyer cited emotional trauma and an inability to participate in proceedings. No one needed her there. The truth was already on paper. Matt moved out. Dylan started spending weekends with his grandmother. The small apartment now held one more drawing on the wall, 3 figures standing in front of a light green house. Across the top, in messy blue marker, Our Real Christmas Home. She bought a modest house near the elementary school. 1 story. Faded wooden siding, a yard full of fallen leaves. Not new, but hers. Matt didn't talk much, but every weekend he showed up, fixed the plumbing, installed shelves, painted the walls. Each action said more than any apology ever could. Dylan slept in a makeshift tent built from bed sheets and fold-up chairs. In the mornings, he ran into the kitchen with fresh drawings in hand. One day, he showed her a picture of her sitting on the porch, eyes closed, holding a cup of tea. I drew it from memory, he said. You looked quiet, but happy. She didn't answer, just pulled him in for a hug and nodded. Once Matt spoke up, I don't know what kind of father I've been, but I want to be better. She gave him 1 line, calm, measured. Kids don't trust words, they trust what they see. That Christmas, there were only 3 of them. A small table, a plastic tree set in the corner. Warm yellow lights from the window. No party, no expensive gifts. Just presents, real, enough. After Dylan fell asleep on the rug with his old teddy bear, Matt sat beside her on the porch and said softly, Thanks for not giving up on me. She looked at the tiny, blinking tree inside. then at the son who had finally learned how to put his child ahead of his pride. She said, "Just keep showing up. That's all I ever wanted." It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a real beginning. She'd once been pushed out of the house she helped them keep, but in the end, she gained something more valuable than square footage, a home no one could take away because it was built on trust, not signatures.